There's a drawing of me from last Tuesday. I know it's last Tuesday because I'm wearing the gray Henley I bought 3 weeks ago. The one that's been sitting on my bedroom chair since I wore it on the drive up. It's in the drawing. The chair is in the drawing. The water bottle on my nightstand is in the drawing. And I'm asleep. And something is standing at the edge of the closet doorway, watching me sleep. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I was still little the first time I understood that the closet was wrong, probably about 4 or 5 years old. Not scary? Wrong. There's a difference, and it took me a long time to find the right word for it. Scary is what you feel on Halloween. Wrong is quieter. Wrong is what you feel when you walk into a room and the air inside it is a different temperature than the hallway. And there's no reason for that. And your body registers it before your brain does. The closet door in my childhood bedroom never closed all the way. Warped frame. Old house, old wood. It always sat open about 2 inches. And at night, those 2 inches were the only thing in the room I couldn't stop thinking about. I want to be precise here, because this matters. I was never afraid something would come out of the closet. I was afraid it would just stay there. As I got older, I developed a system. I know that sounds like the kind of thing a disturbed kid does, but at the time it felt completely logical. By the time I was 7, I'd push the door as far closed as it would go before bed. Then I'd quickly get into bed and under the covers, and I wouldn't look at it, not once, because I had this bone-deep certainty, the kind of certainty you can't explain to a parent or a therapist or anyone who hasn't felt it, that the darkness behind that gap was oriented toward me. That whatever was in it wasn't moving, wasn't threatening, wasn't going to do anything at all. It was just watching. Every night, all night. My parents went through the usual routine. They opened the closet in front of me. They turned the light on. They showed me the hanging clothes, the shoe boxes, the old board games on the top shelf. My dad actually got down on his hands and knees once and showed me there was nothing underneath the hanging clothes either. See? Nothing. I stopped telling them after a while. Not because I stopped believing it, because I understood there was no version of this conversation where they would just stand there quietly in the dark with me and wait long enough to feel what I felt. So I hid under the blankets every night, and I survived it, and eventually I left, and I grew up, and I filed it away under childhood anxiety, and I didn't think about that closet again for 26 years. My parents are both gone now. The house passed to me, and I let it sit for longer than I should have. Last week, I finally drove up to assess what needed doing before I could list it. I figured it would only take a day or two to walk through everything, take photos, figure out the scope of the renovations. I pulled into the driveway on a Tuesday afternoon. The house looked exactly like I remembered it, and nothing like I remembered it at the same time. Smaller, older. The kind of tired that houses get when nobody's loved them for a while. I did the downstairs first. Kitchen, living room, my parents' old bedroom. I took notes. I was methodical. I was fine. I saved my old room for last. I'm not sure I admitted to myself why. The room was mostly cleared. Just the old bed frame, a dresser with the drawers stuck, and the closet. The door was open 2 inches. I stood in the doorway of the room for a moment, looked at that gap, and I felt not fear, something more like recognition. The way you feel running into someone from a long time ago whose name you've almost forgotten. I crossed the room, grabbed the door, and pushed it all the way open. I was pulling old boxes out, winter stuff, school papers, when I noticed the back wall. I thought at first it was the plaster deteriorating. The house was old and the walls showed it. But when I got closer, I could see the marks weren't random. They were organized, deliberate. I got my phone out and turned on the flashlight. There were lines, scratched into the plaster, not drawn, scratched, worked in with something rigid and narrow. The lines formed shapes, figures, a rectangle with 4 legs that I eventually recognized as a bed, and in the bed, a shape, a body, arms at its sides, covers pulled tight, sleeping. I moved the flashlight slowly. Another one. Same bed, same figure, same position. Another. I counted them eventually. 14 drawings. All of them the same subject, same angle, from a slight elevation, looking down and across at the sleeping figure's face. The angle you'd have if you were standing just inside the closet door, looking through a 2-inch gap. Some of the drawings had dates carved into the plaster beside them. 1996, 1999, 2002. I would have been 5 in 1996. I moved the flashlight further right. The drawings continued toward the far corner of the closet, and the figure inside them got larger, older. The proportions changing the way a person changes, gradually, almost tenderly, like whatever made these was paying very close attention. 2004. Still fine. I was still in the house. In 2004. 2007. The year I left for college. And then 2011. I had essentially moved out of the house in 2007. I came back for holidays for a few years, but I never stayed in that room again. My parents converted it to a study sometime around 2009. I stood there in the closet with my flashlight, and I looked at 2011, and I thought about every rational explanation I could think of. Squatters, teenagers, someone with access to the house who knew its history, someone playing a long, elaborate, deeply personal prank on a man who hadn't lived here in 17 years. I thought about all of those things. And then I moved the flashlight to the far corner, low down near the baseboard, where I hadn't looked yet. There were 4 more drawings. The figure in the first 3 was adult-sized, fully grown. But the figure wasn't sleeping the way it was in the earlier ones. The position was slightly different in each. A turned head, a shifted arm. Like these were drawn over multiple nights, like something was being very careful to be accurate. The dates read 2019, 2022, 2024. I've not been inside this house since 2009. And then I looked at the fourth one. The fourth drawing was different. The figure wasn't sleeping. The figure was crouching in a small dark space, holding something rectangular up to the wall. The lines were slow, careful, much more detailed than the others. The bent knees, the angle of the shoulders, the backwards tilt of a head leaning forward to look at something close. There was no date carved beside it. There didn't need to be. I'm staying at a motel 20 minutes from the house. I've been here 4 nights. I haven't slept more than an hour at a stretch. And when I do sleep, I wake up facing the ceiling, and I can't remember deciding to lie that way. I have the photos on my phone. I've looked at them until I know every line, and I keep coming back to the same detail that I didn't notice the first night. Something I only caught when I zoomed in on the last drawing. The fourth one. In the corner of the image, at the very edge of the closet doorway, there's a shape I initially took for a crack in the plaster. It's not a crack. It's thin, vertical, standing just outside the frame, watching the figure crouch, watching me. I've been telling myself it's over, that I took the photos, I left the house, I'm 20 minutes away in a motel with a locked door and the lights on, and whatever made those drawings, person or otherwise, is still back there, contained, fixed to that house the way it always was. But here's the thing I keep returning to, the thing I can't reason my way out of. All those years, I lay in that bed and stared at the ceiling and refused to look at the closet. I thought the rules of it were simple. It stays there. I stay here. We don't acknowledge each other and nothing happens. But the drawings kept going after I left. Which means it wasn't staying there. Which means I don't know where it was. I don't know where it is. If this one got under your skin, there are more waiting. Subscribe to the leather-bound grimoire